I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. It's time for your tropical update. What's happening out there in the Atlantic Basin and also what's cooking out in the Pacific. We have not one but two tropical storms to talk about. So let's get right to it. One that is definitely going to have a shot to impact land, and it's going to be a portion of the U.S. We're talking about Tropical Storm Calvin. It has gotten a little bit stronger this afternoon. Winds now up to 50 miles per hour. Movement to the west at 22 miles per hour and pressure at 1,002 millibars. You can see the big band of convection here shifting west, tracking west. That area of showers and storms rotating around that low pressure system. And this system is moving very close to the big island of Hawaii. This is where we do have tropical storm warnings in place. They should start to feel the effects for this evening and tonight and basically throughout the day on Wednesday. More clouds, periods of heavy rain, maybe 4 to 8 inches of rain for parts of the big island. Isolated totals of rain up to 10 inches and of course big surf. A lot of swells generated by this, so some dangerous swimming conditions. I'm sure the surfers may enjoy it a little bit, but overall kind of messy weather for Hawaii for the next 24 to 36 hours, at least for the big island. Some of the north and central islands may miss out on the majority of this, but overall, Calvin may wreak a little havoc for a portion of Hawaii. As we go into Wednesday afternoon, it should be off to the west of Hawaii, and it will have still around 45 mile per hour winds. It should weaken to a remnant low though by Thursday afternoon. That is when it should weaken to about 35 miles per hour for those maximum sustained winds. So we'll keep watching it closely. It is going to have a impact on Hawaii for tonight and tomorrow, but it is not heading in our direction, of course. We're going to hop over to the Atlantic, and this is a look at Tropical Storm Don. It is still out in the north central Atlantic, still fairly weak. It's a minimal tropical storm, still hanging on to that tropical storm status though, with winds around 40 miles per hour. Movement to the south at 7 miles per hour and pressure at 1,006 millibars. So Don has kind of done a little loop-de-loop out there. It was kind of moving off to the east, and then it kind of shifted to the southeast and then the south, and then over the next day or two it's going to start to shift to the northwest and then eventually to the north. So it's going to end up almost making a complete circle around itself. So kind of a wonky, wacky movement for the next several days, but bottom line, it's not going to be impacting the U.S. It should basically stay over land and just be a fish storm. So that is good news. And it is fairly weak as well. It is still officially a tropical storm, but it is a minimal tropical storm with 40 mile per hour winds. And it is likely going to weaken back to just a remnant low area of low pressure by Sunday, with winds still around the 40-45 mile per hour range, but it will run into those cooler waters and no longer be considered a tropical system. So we'll monitor Don closely, but I don't think it's going to have any impacts on the U.S. As far as what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, it's fairly quiet. There's a few areas of convection out there, a few spots with showers and storms, but nothing that's being monitored by the National Hurricane Center for possible tropical development at this time. We've got that big heat dome across Texas, so that's kind of keeping things quiet here, keeping that tropical activity away, and there's not a ton of action in the Caribbean Sea as well. We've got a few showers and storms near the Yucatan Peninsula over towards Cozumel, but nothing that's being monitored for possible development into a tropical depression, tropical storm, or hurricane. But we are getting closer to the peak of hurricane season, which is usually around September 10th, but August and September are usually the busiest months. And we've already got very warm waters out there to support any future development. In fact, sea surface temps close to 90 degrees for a big portion of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. So if we were to get something to develop, it could quickly pop up and strengthen and get going really fast. Same story for the Atlantic. Those waters are very warm, mainly in the 80s for the central and southern portions of the Atlantic. So as we start to see more of those waves likely coming off of the west coast of Africa as we get closer to August and especially September, they're going to have all of this warm water out there to roll over, and that will give those storms fuel and strength to quickly get their act together and possibly turn into a tropical storm or hurricane. Now, this is the Saharan dust map, and you can see a lot of dust still covering a big portion of the Atlantic, and that is one of the things that's really been hindering major activity from developing over the last few weeks. We've had a lot of this dust pulling in that drier air in the mid and upper levels over portions of the Atlantic, but as we start to get rid of some of that dust, as we go into August and September, things could start to shift and develop quickly. But we are still in July, and these are the areas that we typically monitor for potential development through the end of July. And the Gulf of Mexico is one area that we watch. We typically see systems that can sometimes develop in the Bay of Campeche, the southern Gulf, and roll into South Texas. We also could possibly see systems develop in the South Central Gulf and head up towards the Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana Gulf Coast. Nothing right now, but something we'll be watching over the next few weeks as we wrap up the month of July. Also, an area to watch in July would be the northwestern Caribbean Sea. Nothing developing there now, but another area we'll be monitoring. Also, next area that we are usually a little more concerned about would be the western, southwestern portion of the Atlantic, back close to the Bahamas and off the coast of Florida, off the east coast of Florida rather. That is an area that we have typically seen systems try to develop this time of the year. Also, we monitor this area just to the east of the Leeward Islands. That's where we could get some action developing and pushing west and eventually making it into eastern portions of the Caribbean. So those are the areas that we will be monitoring. Of course, we're watching all of the areas, but those are areas that we typically see a little more development as we go through the month of July. Of course, hurricane season began at the beginning of June, so now we're about a month and a half into our hurricane season, and we've already had 4 named storms: Arlene, Brett, Cindy, and Don. So the next system that would develop in the Atlantic Basin would be named Emily, and then we've got several additional names to potentially get through. Hopefully we won't need them all. We never want a very active hurricane season, but if we need them, they are there. But right now, things are fairly quiet for the Gulf and the Caribbean. We do have the 2 tropical storms, but they are not going to be heading anywhere close to southeast Texas. But check this out. As we go into August and especially September, that's typically where we have the majority of our tropical cyclones developing. So we've still got a long ways to go. Of course, hurricane season lasts all the way through the end of November. So just because things are quiet now, don't get comfortable. Don't let your guard down. Make sure you're still reviewing your hurricane plan. Make sure you have a plan of action with your family. It's also a good time to review your insurance. Make sure you have that flood insurance that you need or that you want. Make sure that you have the supplies that you need. You can check your evacuation routes if you are in an evacuation zone. And you can also grab our Fox 26 weather app. We've got all things tropical on there. If we do have any tropical alerts that would be impacting us or even other areas, you can find that on our Fox 26 weather app. And of course, you can keep track of everything happening with our weather locally. Of course, locally, it's all about the heat, but we can see the tropics get really active super fast. So the Fox 26 weather app, a great thing to have with you wherever you are around the city. Well, that wraps up our tropical update for today. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Enjoy the rest of your day.